I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we got some great guys to talk about things with. Of course, they need no introduction, but we love them so much, we're going to do it anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, my man, Ben Duffy. What's up, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Still buzzing just a little bit from the absolutely electrifying UFC Austin card, and I can't wait to dig into all this stuff with you guys.
Absolutely. And of course, the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, also my good friend, Mr. Jay Petrie. What's up, Jay?
I came very close to hitting both of you guys up on Saturday night when I was working on stuff after Duffy's own recap show to say, you guys want to talk about this stuff right now? You want to talk about it right now? Because of the excitement, because it's been 2 weeks of exceptional UFC offerings. And that has made me happy because I know that we've been, kind of saddled with some duds in the past, couple months or so. Stat of the week, though, is a very, very positive one. The stat of the week is 550, in particular, 550,000, which is the dollar amount of the bonus money that the UFC handed out with one fight of the night, so two $50,000 checks to Calvin Kattar and Josh Emmett, and 9 performance of the night bonus checks to each of the fighters that finished their fight. Which is spectacular. It's the most amount of bonus money after an event, which surprisingly enough, a lot of people don't remember this. The old record was UFC 129 because UFC decided we're going to theme it and give $129,000 bonuses to our people this week or to this event. So yeah, big bucks, no whammies, but the gate was $2 million, so they can handle it.
Yeah, just a minor, just pennies in the couch cushions right there.
Like the gate alone was 4 times that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we'll revisit the bonuses in a little bit here, but let's go ahead and talk about that main event. But before we do, remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. All right, Josh Emmett defeated Calvin Kattar by split decision. Defying my expectations, I predicted that Kattar would have a pretty easy time in this one. I think the odds makers had Kattar as a comfortable favorite as well, if I'm remembering correctly from the broadcast. Fellas, are we in agreement with the judge's decision there? Or I'd say the deciding judge, the deciding judges, I say, are we in agreement with Emmett getting the victory Saturday night?
Chris Lee did it again. Round 4, he scored for Josh Emmett. That was the decisive round that would have turned it to a split decision for Calvin Kattar to win the fight. Now, obviously, I know there are other scores and other ways that it could have flipped around the other way. But the reason I highlight this is because Calvin Kattar won the 4th round handily. Like, that was one of the most uncontroversial rounds of the fight. That was the round that he hit the spinning back elbow, and it was the round that he doubled up on Emmett's offense and was doing some work, and he was stuffing takedowns, and he wasn't taking the big shots. So that was the round that Calvin Kattar clearly won, and yet Chris Lee gave that round to Josh Emmett, and that was the way that it flipped. I scored the fight 48-47 for Calvin Kattar. I could see. It's hard, man. I don't know if I can really go 3 rounds that I can pick out and go, yeah, that could have been a Kattar round. I could see 2, but maybe you guys can help me here because 3 rounds for Emmett just seems like a lot.
It really, in my opinion, it really depends on what you gave those first 2 rounds.
Yes.
Because 3 and 4 were the only ones that were very, very clear to me. 3 was by far an Emmett round, and 4 was by far a Kattar round. And other than that, it's kind of a toss-up. Yeah. I scored it the same way you did. I had it 3-2 for Kattar. Had it even going into the last round. Yeah, and thought he edged out that last round. I mean, extremely close fight, but I mean that 4th round score from Chris Lee is there's literally no defense for that.
Yep, he sucks. A lot of people seem to be really mad about this one. it was a fight with a lot of individually difficult to score rounds. On MMA decisions, about 2/3 of the media scored it for Kattar. There's a poll on the Sherdog front page. About 2/3 of the fans scored it for Kattar. I mean, we're not talking about a robbery of the year type thing here,
No way.
but yeah, I thought Kattar won the fight.
I mean, I think when we talk about robberies, this is the one of the few times where I'm looking at partially as a robbery simply because of that fourth round, because this is not one of those cases where it's like Condit versus Lawler, or where it's just an extremely close fight the entire way, and like every round is kind of a swing round. It just matters which side of the fence you lay on, or maybe Diaz Condit, something like that. Where it's how you interpret the scoring criteria. But this shows one round that was just indefensibly scored, and how it sways the fight. And I think that's the aspect of bad judging that is missing from a lot of that conversation. Those individual rounds that end up creating this distorted version of what happened. I think back to the first Woodley Wonderboy fight, and how was it Doug Crosby that didn't score a 10-8 for the most obvious 10-8 round for Woodley, and how that that affected the final score in the end. That's the problem with judging, in my opinion, when you have those individual rounds that something really stupid is either on the judge's mind or nothing's on their mind, and they write down the wrong numbers. That's in my opinion the biggest takeaway from this when we talk about the robbery conversation.
I mean, it's a good point. It is a good point to make, because I agree. The first 3 rounds are definitely. I mean, the first 2 rounds were up for grabs. So if you give, I mean, I think it was Keith and Ben on the recap show. I think you guys were talking about this specifically. That you can go. Okay, 3 rounds of this fight, you can pretty comfortably say round 3 to Kattar, or I'm sorry, round 3 to Emmett, rounds 4 and 5 to Kattar, where you're more comfortable the ways you lean. And then 1 and 2 could go either way, and then you could see a 48-47 on either side. So the issue is that one of the clear rounds, in fact, according to MMA decisions, the clearest round that I think it said almost 97% of the fan voters. Obviously, fan voters mean nothing. Look at verdict on PFL and verdict as a whole, and the fact that fans don't mean anything in terms of scoring because their input means nothing, because it's the 3 judges that matter. But for all of the perspectives to go, that fourth round was that was a clear round, to be not was the head scratcher moment. And there were a couple of them. I mean, because there were what, 2, 3. Well, no, there were 3 split decisions in this event, and all 3 of them were contentious to me. So it's tough. I think I scored the Gloria DePaula in favor. I think I had her winning, and she lost a split. I forget how I think I leaned for Ismagulov, and a lot of people had Kutaladze winning that fight. So it was Splitsville, and it was Texas judging, but Chris Lee ain't a Texan. So what do we do here?
Nope.
It wasn't like a Patrick Patlin, Joe Solis kind of scorecard that we go, oh, those sons of nutcrackers, those Texas boys. This was Chris Lee, Doug Crosby,
John Shorty did
Rome.
show up in ruin 1.
Yeah.
When in Rome. I mean, I don't know if it's something about the air you're breathing over there, Ben, but I don't know, too much barbecue before the event, little sleepy at the desk.
That might be it.
Yeah, that fourth round was pretty damn obvious from my layman opinion, sitting in my living room.
And speaking of barbecue, this is not on our sheet, so buckle up, boys. Daniel Cormier didn't feel it, didn't feel anything that was happening in this fight card, because he had multiple incidents of what are you doing right here? Coaching Deron Winn, commentating for him, but coaching him, and then the Phil Hawes situation. The weird segment, did you catch that? It was, they were coming back from commercial, and Fitzgerald was talking about the barbecue in the area, in a local joint, because they always do that in sporting broadcasts. The local area, oh, look at this cool restaurant, check this stuff out. And Cormier starts shouting over him, saying, you're a vegetarian, you can't talk about barbecue. She's like, what are you doing? Daniel Cormier, I don't understand if he's just comfortable, if he feels he has tenure, because I can't do his commentary. Like ever since Thug Rose, I just can't really get on board with DC as a commentator, and it really showed in this event. Am I talking trash, or should I get schooled, or is there something to that?
You take that one first, Ben.
It was pretty bad. When he started out, he had a problem with coaching fighters from the desk.
Mm-hmm.
And he got away from it for a while, but he relapses into it, especially when he's dealing with someone that he coaches in real life.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, all he does is he just puts this little fig leaf in front of it of, well, if you're Deron Winn, you want to, and then he coaches Deron Winn for 30 seconds.
Loud. He will say the things louder than his "if you're Deron Winn." You want to make sure not to step in again, but I remember when Paul Felder was commentating an event and Jared Gordon was fighting, and he actually stepped away from the desk and said, I don't want to be an impartial commentator, and he stepped away for that fight. Is that something? I don't know. Ant, what are your thoughts on the whole thing?
You know what? It's funny because like I didn't listen to all the commentary when I was watching. Like I as usual, I watched this after the fact, and I had it on mute because I was on TrackLib digging for samples to make some beats with while I was watching. So I didn't always have the commentary on, but every bit that I did hear was like, that could have been better. The whole situation with Phil Hawes, I didn't see it. I obviously didn't see it live. I saw it on Twitter like right after it happened. I just happened to turn on Twitter just to get a gauge for what was going on in the fights, and I saw that had taken place. All video of it. ESPN had scrubbed it by the time I got to my watch of the event. But it was just weird. Like I'm happy to watch the fights without much commentary these days. Like the commentary has, every time I turn the sound on, it's like, I could have done without that. For all the criticism that Paul Felder has received as a commentator, I agree entirely. I think Paul Felder is incredible, and part of that is his impartiality.
Exactly.
Or you could even go the Dominic Cruz route, where you're not impartial, but your guys you're tougher on. To at least take that air of bias away. Cormier, I think it's also, it highlights one of his biggest strengths as not necessarily just a commentator or as a fighter or coach, but just a personality in mixed martial arts. He just seems like an everyday guy.
Yeah.
And that's the bad side of his appeal. That he is going to do the everyday guy thing. And also look at it as, he's a guy who's always found ways to kind of go outside the rule book and stay in bounds at the same time. This is his commentary equivalent of leaning on the towel on the scale. He obviously has a deep attachment to Deron Winn, and this was his biggest advocate, in the build up to his, I guess, national debut on the Liddell Ortiz 3 card. And so Cormier's been there, and coached him, and he's been so involved with his career. I don't, is he managing him too?
That I don't know.
I mean, they're so close, and
this is the time where you gotta step aside, because it's too close to, and unless this is a promotional thing where, okay, we're talking about Rampage and Rashad guest commentating one another's fights, because that's the next big fight coming up. Unless you're doing something like that, like, no, you've got to excuse yourself from that desk, because that's the stupidity that happens.
I mean, like, I like DC. Like, I'm sure he's a great guy. Like, I've never met him. What was it? The great guy, never met him kind of thing. I just, there are certain parts that I go, you don't have to say anything. The whole dispute with Hawes, like, okay, fine, maybe Hawes started it, or yelling at DC or whatever, however it came to be. But DC is a UFC employee, and he should know, okay, just, all right, okay, whatever, instead of throwing back at him and going back and forth. And, eventually it turned from, hey, all right, to Bruce Buffer and or I forget who the ref was at the particular fight. I'm sure I can find out in a second. In fact, it was Herb Dean actually put a hand on Cormier because Cormier was starting to yell at Phil Hawes. It's like, and then there was the you're not fighting me kind of thing, like a veil, like you didn't beat me kind of whatever that is. Like, is that a threat? It's just, it could have all been avoided, and it didn't have to go the way it did. Let Brendan Fitzgerald do the post-fight interview because he doesn't have to talk to the guy who just smoked his little brother. It's so simple, and I can't imagine there's a requirement that Cormier has to do the post-fight for whatever. Cruz has done post-fight interviews. Get Cruz in there. Let Deron Winn be consoled by Cormier. Deal with that way, and then it was a situation that didn't have to happen. And it was just one of multiple weird incidents by Cormier this fight card that just made me go, ugh, like it's that record screech kind of nails in a chalkboard thing. Anyway, let's get back on track. I feel like I'm winding enough.
Oh no! You know what? One last thing I want to ask you guys on this topic. What was worse, this display, this Cormier Hawes thing, or Dan Hardy yelling at what ref was that he was yelling at? Was Herb Dean? Yeah. Which one? Worse conduct by a UFC employee
Hardy,
while on the clock.
Hardy, because that was like disrupting an actual fight that was still going on.
Yeah. Like Hardy yelling from the desk when Herb Dean was over there, that's crappy. But Hardy yelling during the fight and trying to say, do the thing, whatever, stop. Was he trying to yell to stop the fight or something? I forget.
Yeah, that's
That's
you know, I'm actually inclined to give Hardy more of a pass in that regard, because if I'm remembering correctly,
all of the people watching were like, hey, maybe you stop the fight.
Exactly, because that becomes more of a safety issue. That's a safety issue. That's like, okay, this man could literally die in there if someone doesn't step in and do their job. And when everyone else is not doing their job, Dan Hardy, you know, in a moment of caring, elects to do his, elects to step on toes to get the job done. But in this case, this was Cormier and Hawes was all ego, all unnecessary, and very poorly planned from a practical standpoint, from the UFC to have them in this close proximity after such an event just doesn't make much sense to me. So.
I mean, I'm trying to think of an example that's close, because I don't know if Cruz has people that he's tight with, like Angela Hill or Jeremy Stevens. They trains with an alliance, but like it would be like I don't know, Artem Lobov losing and then Connor having to host a post-fight interview to the other person. That type of relationship of that close knit kind of thing. Like, okay, maybe not. Like you saw what happened. Cormier was like. Barely keeping it together when Duran was getting lit up in there. Rockford, I don't know. I said this to the staff when I was writing the play-by-play for Sherdog, that I almost ran out of ways to say getting rocked in that fight because of how many times he got hurt. But I feel for Cormier, like that's gonna suck to see your little brother getting absolutely shellacked for 9.5 minutes and there's nothing you can do. I'll tell you besides talk about it.
From my personal experience, like I've cornered a fighter that was taking a bad loss. I've watched friends that were training partners in fights and they're losing or getting hit and everything else. It is a very emotionally jarring experience. And when I'm thinking about the one time I got to do commentary, like, man, I don't think I could do both at the same time. I don't think that's really possible. I remember when, one particular fight that my friend that I used to coach lost, and it was like a really disturbing thing for me. And like, it bothers me to this day when I think back to some of the angles of destruction that I had from that cage. That this was a guy that I really care about and I look at like a little brother, and to see him getting beat the way he was, and knowing that hey, well, maybe I didn't sufficiently prepare him for this. And, so I know all those thoughts had to have been swirling around in Cormier's head, to see like this guy that you've brought up from his amateur MMA days until now. And I believe they had a relationship when he was just a wrestler.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're seeing somebody who you've had a big part in shaping and molding, and you're seeing them out there failing. yeah, like that's no condition to commentate in. Like, and for that reason, if you have that close of a relationship with someone, you should not be in the booth. It's just that simple. It's too emotional. It's too close to home. Yeah, man. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and
It almost felt like the kind of thing that Cormier would take off his commentator suit and be like, Phil Hawes, 3 months, T-Mobile Arena, light heavyweight.
yeah, which he
Light
didn't.
heavyweight.
Didn't he step down from the booth to like corner Rockhold or something at one point, or Kane, and he had. I remember a picture of him in his suit with the jacket off. We got the gloves, and he's in someone's corner. Like,
I think now I'm ringing a bell here because I know Felder's on that. I think was it Rockhold when he came back to fight Jan Blachowicz?
I don't think it was then. I was at that fight, and I don't remember Cormier being.
Yeah.
But maybe it was Kane against Ngannou or something like that. But I do remember Cormier like relieving himself of duty for the moment. And that was the time to do that. But all right, fellas, so we jump crazy off track, but hey, what the hell? This is what we do. Let's get back to some of the other fights that took place Saturday night. Kevin Holland with an impressive submission win over Mike Sloan, or Tim Means. Impressive win over Tim Means. Do we think that this is the perfect way for the UFC to just fast track him to welterweight rankings?
I think he actually will get a little bit of a fast track here. Right. I mean, welterweight has always been an incredibly crowded division up once you get into the top 20 or so. You have to win a lot of fights in a row to break into the welterweight top 10. You have to win a lot of fights in a row to get into the title picture. Just ask Santiago Ponzinibbio or Vicente Luque or obviously Leon Edwards, the king of the delayed title shot. Holland is going to get a bit of an inside track. He was a contender in his last division. That always gives you a little bit of a leg up. He's a known guy. He's got a personality. He's got an exciting fight style. You can make the argument that even above people like Khamzat Chimaev and Joaquin Buckley, he's the one that really took the best advantage of that first year of COVID to kind of burst onto the scene and make himself into a star. For all those reasons, I do think he may just be, 2 more wins away from a title shot instead of 6, like another welterweight coming in with the same kind of credentials would be.
It's a really interesting thing now that you mentioned that, because I'm picturing the examples in the past where cross-divisional movement from a relevant fighter can help them skip the line in a big way. I'm not talking about the Connors or Michael Chiesa is a great example. Rafael dos Anjos really was able to move past that. Anthony Pettis, wasn't his first fight at 170 in a long time Stephen Thompson? And then boom, he's a top 10 guy because he knocked out Stephen Thompson in the end of the second round after in a round he was getting wrecked, but it doesn't matter because he knocked him out. So it almost seems like to be able to get in this division, you need to be able to move. Like obviously 185 isn't crazy star for talent, but Chimaev could move up to 185 and they'd match him against a Derek Brunson, like a top 5 guy. That would be how they would do it. If say Darren Till decided to go back to 170, he could probably hop in and fight a Bilal Muhammad. Like he would be able to,
or more likely go back to like 174.
Yeah, I mean, go back to fine, super lightweight. You can go to it's super welterweight and Bray, that 175 division. But there are guys that you can see that could easily slip up and do that. I mean, Poirier is number 2 at lightweight. He could go to welterweight and fight Colby, number 1 guy, never fighting a welterweight. So Holland he didn't game the system because he had to fight Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori. My goodness. But by accomplishing what he did at middleweight and getting here, he can then laterally move to welterweight, take a couple of fights in the action-packed, the action pile we call of Cowboy Oliveira and Tim Means, who are very firmly in that all-action group of just there's going to be crazy things that are happen when he fights Nico Price or whatever. And then boom, he's he's at the opportunity right now after a couple months at 170 to fight I think who people have been calling for this one. I like it a lot. Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson, Kevin Holland, and that's a fight that he wins. He's in the top 10, and it's only 3 fights in that division compared to a Shavkat Rakhmonov, who whatever he has to do, Sean Brady, whatever he has to do to get up there. Sean Brady has won how many fights in the UFC, and he's number 9, and Holland could be ranked above him in 3 wins. It's that kind of movement that it's maybe more fighters should do that. That they should be like, okay, I'm number 8 in my division. I'm going to go to a tougher division and then win a fight or 2 and then suddenly be up here.
I mean, Holland has a unique opportunity because of, I think, the current landscape of welterweight. When you look at some of the, look at the top 10, or you just look at the whole top 15, and you see a lot of guys who would be, for style wise, would make for very interesting fights against Kevin Holland. And then you look at some of them have pretty well-known names that have been in for title shots before. Wonder Boy, as you mentioned, great fight. Holland versus Wonder Boy would be fantastic. Jorge Masvidal and Kevin Holland.
Up.
I
talking during the fight.
Yeah, the thing about Kevin Holland is that the combination of this types of fights that he puts on and his personality put him in a very unique position with this list of names to where, hey, I'm willing to see it. Like, even if could you see a world where Chimaev has to get a late notice replacement and Kevin Holland gets the call?
I'm game. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah,
the COVID warriors, the COVID era warriors.
Exactly. Like, I can even see, and if you want to go low key on it, you can put him up against a Vicente Luque, and that still promises
That's not
action.
A banger or anything.
Yeah, like there's just so many possibilities with Kevin Holland in this division, and physically the way he looks has been marvelous. Like the speed, this timing, like the length that he's fully able to take advantage of. Yeah, man, this was the right move for Holland, and that's so rare for me to say, because I'm always against a guy, dropping weight, but good Lord, man, he looks fantastic out there.
He knocked out Jeff Neal several years ago. Run that back. He's a top 10 guy.
Exactly. Options. Like, yeah, there's so many options. So Kevin Holland is playing with house money at this point.
But Duffy, do you think his call out of Sean Brady was brilliant or foolish?
The ball's on this man. What was his problem at middleweight? Is that he ran up against big, burly wrestlers that just physically overpowered him and just held him down and didn't let him do Kevin Holland things. So he goes to welterweight. He picks up a nasty, nasty win over Tim Means, where he clubs and subs him, and he calls out an undefeated, huge wrestler with just a crushingly heavy top game. I love it. I love it when fighters call out somebody that they know is a bad style matchup for them on paper. And considering that we're having a 5-minute conversation here about whether he is kind of like the velvet rope is being lifted for him, what better way to head off all of those criticisms at the past than to say, I called out the exact kind of fighter that everybody says I need to pass before, I can get into the title picture. Think of how long everybody was like, well, wait until Conor faces a wrestler.
Exactly.
And that kind of thing. So I love it. And even as an impartial observer that just wants to see the fights, let's find out now whether moving down to 170 solved those problems. Maybe his problem with defensive wrestling wasn't just that, like, he's 6'4" and all legs. Maybe it was that just he wasn't physically strong enough. Let's see if that is remedied by moving down to 170. Because if he can no-sell Sean Brady's takedowns, then all of a sudden I do want to see him against Colby Covington or Kamaru Usman.
Yeah. Kevin Holland he's got so many options right now. Like, Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard can just close their eyes and throw a dart at a board, and it's a good move for Holland.
Seriously, think of all the matchups where you're going to learn something. If he fights Chiesa, you're going to learn something. If he fights Magny, can he deal with a guy his range that has the cardio like he has. He fights a Masvidal, a guy with a pretty darn good chin, except for that Usman thing. The guy with Wonder Boy, the range and the movement. There's just there's a lot of boxes that can be checked here, and it's a rare situation where I look at other guys in the division where I go, okay, they're doing the same thing. I'm not going to be as excited. Like I look at Chimaev and I go, I don't really care if he fought Stephen Thompson. I don't really, well, fine, if he fought Sean Brady, whatever. Whereas I look at the Holland, I go, oh, yeah, that's Sean Brady fight. Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. And you could even, granted, I who knows, but considering the status of what his last contracted fight is going to be, unless they get him to resign. But Kevin Holland, Nate Diaz, yes, please.
I mean, come on.
It just and a win over Nate Diaz would surely propel him to rank status just because of Nate Diaz's name. So Kevin Holland can do no wrong right now when it comes to matchmaking. So I'm liking it. The one thing I will say to wrap this topic up, I gotta ask you guys' opinion on this because I think over fight week didn't he like stop a purse snatcher or something like that? Some mugger that he jumped or something.
I think this time it was like somebody who tried to grab and run like from a store with merchandise. But this is 2 fights in a row where he is like stopped a crime right before or right after fight week.
Yeah, are we thinking some of these are staged or something? Because this is getting a little too suspicious for me. Like I likened him on Twitter to Mysterio in the second Spider-Man MCU movie. Because that's what it's like, okay, you're staging this to make yourselves look like a hero. Because you can't just be running into crime like this all the time, unless you only in fight week, you only hang out in the worst neighborhoods. I don't know. You just go to the hood every city you go to fight.
This is Austin. If he hangs out in the worst part of town, he's just going to get pooped on by bats.
Yeah.
Which sounds like kind of a superhero origin story right there. So
yeah,
it's like he gets a bad latte and now this is his origin story.
Yeah, I mean, it was a stolen. Somebody stole something from a store, and he stopped him ahead of this fight. He had the rescuing the person from the tractor trailer truck a month ago. The people were like, "Well, did you? I don't know." And then the one in March where he allegedly he stopped an alleged shooting in a restaurant right before his fight. And then in October, right before his fight with Kyle Dawkins, he stopped a carjacker.
Yeah.
Look, man. I don't know the details, and that's a problem because how do we not know the details yet for all of these situations?
This dude got the Phoenix Jones costume hanging in his closet.
Yeah, man.
God, I am just waiting for him to start selling drugs then if that's the case. Not because of some implicit thing, but because that's what Phoenix Jones did after his
Yeah.
Dark Phoenix Jones.
Yes, Dark Phoenix Jones.
Yes.
If he's
Phoenix
really
John
doing this,
Jones.
then he is in the wrong. We need to rename Trailblazer to Wrong Place, Wrong Time because I tell you, the last thing you want to do is run down thieves armed that you're fighting the day or two before. What?
Yeah. It's like Kevin Holland must find the it's like he's just a resident of Gotham City or something.
Does he
like
have maybe he has like a scanner or
stop.
something?
Yeah, I mean whatever it is, I sense some BS, man. This guy's either staging it or he is purposely going to the wrong places and looking for his kick. So I don't know if he needs new sparring partners because he was also like beating up people on Twitter that were trolling him and stuff. So I don't know. Kevin Holland is looking for thrills in all the wrong ways, man. This dude is wild. So all right, well let's keep things pushing here. One last topic before we jump into a couple of the other segments that we have for the show. UFC on ESPN 37, UFC Austin, I believe the hashtag was. Did this pass event of the year status, which I think we'd agree it was that so far as UFC 275 that took place the week before. Before we ask any follow-ups, did it surpass 275?
A lot of pensive silence.
I say no, but
no. I mean, you have to rate them on 2 whole different scales. The stakes are different. The setting is different. The expectations are different. I'm comfortable calling UFC on ESPN 37 one of the best like free cable cards I've ever seen. You know, it may settle in, and I go, you know what? That's the best fight night card I've ever seen. But it doesn't pass 275. Like, even if you just trim down 275 to the main event, it might not pass it. You know, like we're 2 weeks removed from one of the more memorable fights I've ever seen. You know, Prohaska versus Teixeira was just that good, and then the rest of the card was excellent too.
Yeah, I mean, last week we were talking about whether Prohaska and Teixeira was the greatest light heavyweight fight of all time. I'm sorry, a fight night card does not surpass that. You know, unless every fight ends with like tornado kicks or something. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. This like you said, Ben, the stakes aren't the same. And then on top of that, I think the like when you have one of these big events is something that we always talk about on the show. That week after, when they put on that fight night card, it feels like so much more taxing to watch it because it's like you're emotionally drained. So at that point, almost anything that isn't a total bore is going to get you riled up. It's like some of the leftover juice from 275 that this fight night card got a boost off of. So this card on its own was great to watch, but not better than a pay-per-view with 2 title fights. I'm sorry.
And even outside of those title fights, I mean, seeing Joanna Jędrzejczyk just face planted.
Right. In a potential KO of the year.
Yeah.
Let me ask,
it had the highlights too.
Yeah.
It had a lot of highlights, but let me ask you guys something. Do you guys remember Bellator 225? Do you remember who fought in the main event? Just as simple as that. Don't look, just see if you can know. It's okay. It's not a catch. Happened in 2019 in Connecticut. It was just
Unkinsville?
Huh?
Unkinsville, Connecticut?
Bridgeport, actually. It was the weird non-Mohegan Sun card.
Fancy. All right.
Anyway, that's okay. There's not a wrong answer. Bellator 225 was Matt Mitrione versus Sergey Karatanov 2. And it was a very, very unexpected card because every single fight on the event ended by stoppage. It was mayhem. It was pandemonium. It was event of the year fodder. But then we looked at it and we went, yeah, okay, but who's fighting? What are we doing here? Is it that this? What are the stakes? You know, there's no title fights on there. There was no tournament fights. A lot of catch weights. And Sergey Karatanov, Matt Mitrione was the main event. So we can tell how it stacks up. I bring that fight card up because that was like this event. Mayhem, crazy stoppages, violence by the bucketful. I mean, we didn't have a bloodbath fight, so we didn't quite have that one. But we had lots of KOs. I don't mean knockouts. I mean on the ground, out cold KOs. And that is not always as common. We have a lot of TKOs in the sport. And I look at this and I go, the stakes are pretty decent. We got a number 1 contender type matchup. We have some very hot prospects. We have some thises and that's, but this is as far as it can go because it just doesn't have the import. It doesn't have the significance because all 13 fights could have ended by finishes. And we would have been lauding how insane that was. But at the end of the day, the relevance has to play a factor too. Violence is a very important part of how exciting a fight card is to me. But I look at 275 and I go, the stakes were so much higher on the top 3 fights in the card than any of the bouts on ESPN 37 or Austin card. And the Yuri Glover fight, of course, blows most of them out of the water just by itself. So it is Duffy's. There are 2 scales, you have to rate them. And I think if you don't, then you have to cap at a certain point. You have to say this is as good as it could ever be because it's a free card on TV. And I think that's appropriate because this was memorable because it was thrilling, but it isn't memorable because of the lasting impressions, the ramifications, the importance, I think. Yeah. So yes.
So think back to you guys. I know you've been to your fair share of local and regional shows. And how many people did you see get damn near decapitated? And how many crazy knockouts and how many wild submissions and how many just absolute rock'em sock'em robot brawls have you witnessed? But when you left the arena or left the county fair or wherever this took place, did you remember anyone's names? Did anything come of it other than your entertainment for that night? And that's a question you got to ask yourself, because if we're talking event of the year just purely on the level of violence, which is a great scale when you're talking about a violent sport, you got to talk about those shows too, because those are far more violent in a lot of cases. We got to talk about some of the mismatches in Bellator prelims and stuff where people are getting iced left and right. So we have to set a scale somewhere when it comes to relevance of the picture of a division or the sport or legends or whatever the criteria that be that elevated above some of the aforementioned examples of just violence for violence sake in the sport. So, all right, gentlemen. So let's move on to quick hits. I'm going to put 30 seconds on the clock. I'm going to put a fair warning in here, Ben, because my son is tossing and turning, but I think he's going to go back to sleep. So I'm hoping he stays put, and we can just get this segment rocked. So I got the clock out, not the cock, the clock, and I'm going to go ahead and put 30 seconds on there. And why does my son's been messing with my phone? The settings are off. That's what's going on. Okay. All right, so Ben, I'm going to start with you. Does Adrian Yanez have the right skills and physical tools to break through at 135?
I'd argue that to a certain extent, he already has. I think he should be fighting a top 10, top 15 type opponent in his next fight. He's absolutely a dazzling striker, one of the best boxers in the UFC, one of the best strikers in the bantamweight division, right up there with Sean O'Malley. Like, obviously, the rainbow hair and the brash attitude and like the top end sizzle of the highlight reel isn't quite the same. The questions are the same as they were when he was whooping people up in LFA and Fury. Can he wrestle?
I have a fight for you to think about. Hani Yahya got hurt. Cody Garbrandt needs a new opponent. Buy or sell? Yep.
Just throw that in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
please.
And Garbrandt is snoring.
Yeah.
Inside of a round.
Yeah.
And it's a huge name to build on.
Yeah.
Without being,
Yeah. I mean, Garbrandt probably goes in there as a favorite.
Yeah.
Because of his name recognition.
Yep.
And Tony Kelly showed you what happens when you get sucked into a brawl against Adrian Yanez. Because he stays calm and he snipes your head off.
Did you guys see that? It was a GIF on Twitter going around that it was taking, it was showing multiple times where Yanez would catch and parry a kick of Kelly in slow-mo, and it would show him countering. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
that was artwork.
The technique was so smooth. Like when I first saw that, it felt like I blinked and it's like, what dropped him? And I had to go back and watch it again. It's like, oh my God, he parried the teep, and then as he's resetting the arm, he comes back around with the hook. I mean, that was
or
beautiful.
He'd block and then come with that. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful, man. Yanez is somebody to watch for sure. All right, so Jay, we're going to revisit a topic here that you discussed in your stat of the week. The UFC gave bonuses to every fighter that won by stoppage. Should this be implemented permanently?
I think the UFC might be gravitating towards this. This is not the first time this year that the UFC has said we're just going to give bonuses to every finish. And I think the UFC might do this going forward, like kind of sneakily just kind of introduce it. And it won't be $50,000 checks. They're probably going to pare that down. But I don't be surprised if we have a finish bonus at the end of the night that everybody can have. And it's got to be better than crypto.
Oh, he lacked faith in crypto. And that's going to be very disappointed with you.
So I got to ask you a question, Ant, because I know that you don't want to seem foolish or silly for asking your own question.
Of course.
Are you more comfortable with an old legend or a young up and coming lion that you want to talk about?
Let's talk about an old legend. And
goody.
What's wrong with Michael? There's the clock. All right.
Some might not call him a legend, but I do not care by his career and his long time in the sport. Eddie Wineland, former WEC champion, lost by first round knockout to Cody Stamann. And he took off his gloves. The UFC did not let him have a goodbye interview, which is, I don't know, it's not like they had the time. But he did announce his retirement on social media shortly thereafter. How will you remember Eddie Wineland's career after his retirement?
You know what? I don't think this is fair to Eddie Wineland, but I think I share the same experience of a lot of other people. His great days in the WEC predate when I watched the WEC regularly. His days as champ, I never actually got to watch. But I remember him as a very entertaining fighter who was always game. There was that weird period where I forgot that he was still active and he'd fight like once a year. And I'm like, oh, Eddie Wineland's back. But he is someone who should go down in the record books as a person who was all about the action, and that deserves a ton of respect and a hell of a mustache too. That's quite the mustache.
Sure.
All right, Jay. Well, thank you for not making me seem like a crazy person. I'm going to put 30 seconds on the clock, and we're going to go around robin and ask each other the same question here. So, Ben, you're up first. How does Damir Ismagulov fit in with the loaded top 15 lightweight division?
By the eyeball test, he's been probably a top 5 lightweight for a while now. His biggest enemy has been the scale that goes all the way back to his days as an M1 champ. If he whooped the scale this time, which it looks like he did, and he was fine in the 3-round fight, sky's the limit for this guy. Immediate title contender.
All that time on the clock. In fact, you know what I'm going to do, because yeah, we're just going to keep rolling through, and I'll stop us in after the clock goes a couple times. Jay, what say you?
Ismagulov made a statement by weighing 155 pounds this event. He said, I can make championship weight, which is good because he weighed 163 last time. Yes, he's on a 19 fight win streak against some actually legitimate names coming up. He fought for M1 for a while, and they're not all garbage over there like you might think. Talent. He's got the skills. He's got the grappling. He's got a lot to offer. And I'm looking forward to some matchups that he's going to have. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. You know, he certainly talent-wise looks like he fits the part at in lightweight. Problem is, this is a very, very, very crowded division. I definitely can see a world where he's just lost in the shuffle. Because he is a good fighter. He has put on some exciting performances. This fight Saturday was very exciting, although I didn't think he won. That's another story. But I mean, look at some of the names in the top 15 and the action that they promise. The personalities are there. I think he gets lost in the shuffle.
It's fair because a lot of those guys above him have long win streaks too. Or they have old legacy names for some reason they're in the rankings. I don't know why Connor's still ranked at 155 in the UFC, but
yeah. I mean, I think this is the sort of guy that if they want to get him over, there's certain names they're going to throw his way, like a Dan Hooker, who is, you know,
now back at 155 again.
Yeah, back rank at 135, 140, 150. What am I?
He
155.
He moved back over to 155. Yeah, he's still ranked there.
Yeah, so I could see him being used in that way, and if that's the case, then maybe we have to revisit this conversation. But as of right now, I think it's too crowded for him to stand out. So there's that. All right, gentlemen. Now it's time to move on to the best titled segment in all of media history. I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the course of the past week. Jay, I'll begin with you. What is your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
We're getting out of MMA and we're going over to kickboxing because stuff happens over there and it's very strange and unusual. Glory Kickboxing is one of the premier kickboxing leagues out in the world these days. There's K1 that's still kind of doing something, and then there's Rise over in Japan. But you know, they're the big UFC type of kickboxing company, I would argue, is Glory right now. And Glory decided months after the invasion of Ukraine back in February. Now it's June. What was it? June 17th is when the official announcement came from Glory that they are ejecting and cutting, whatever word you want to call, terminating the contracts of every Russian fighter on its roster, including a champion, Artem Vakitov. Now, it claimed it was struggling to keep these fighters safe. Glory claimed, by the way. They were struggling to keep these fighters safe, struggling to pay the fighters, struggling to get these fighters in the country, and other reasons. This is why they said, we're just going to let them fight elsewhere and deal with it, which, yeah, but no. because we know MMA in our own world has no issue. I mean, Alexander Volkov headlined a card in London, and England banned Russians traveling to the country, and he still got in. Glory has pull, and like not as much as the UFC has, but Glory. This is a very strange move, and I can't figure out its timing. I can't figure out anything other than trying to sell a title fight because they're putting a new title on the line, a vacant belt for Vahitov's line. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons, that Glory made this move now, suddenly, after months of invasion. It's weird, man. I don't have a good takeaway. It's weird.
Yeah, I found that the story to be kind of interesting, and without me knowing a lot of the details, what's going on behind closed doors at Glory offices, I do know, weren't they in financial trouble not that long ago?
Big time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine the logistics have got to be a financial nightmare in comparison to what they were before.
Yeah.
And if they lack the same like literal political pull that the UFC has, like the UFC, at least in this country, has actual political pull. If they don't have that, then it makes those logistics even tougher. So this is probably more of a financial decision than anything else. I can't imagine that this was a stance involving morality,
right,
or anything of that sort. I mean, this is the same organization that has employed Badr Hari, despite all the knucklehead things he's done. So I don't know. I think this is just a promotion that doesn't have the deep pockets that the UFC has, running into a brick wall, and this is their solution, however flawed it may be. But I guess time will tell. We'll see. Ben, I know you were kind of on the fence of contributing to this segment this week, but did you have anything you wanted to share for I'm Not Surprised?
Oh, wait, I guess I will point out that 10-time UFC veteran, former NFL star Greg Hardy did sign with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship over the last week or 10 days. It's something that we joked about happening, and it was kind of the nervous laughter because we all kind of seriously expected it to happen. It has happened. I'm happy for this because it is one more step in the direction of I will never have to talk about Greg Hardy again in a professional capacity, because this tends to be the last stop. So, it's just going to take him now over there running into one of the decent club fighters that they have populating their heavyweight division to watch him take his first hard shot with nothing but wrapped hands, go down in a puddle like Bob Sapp in the fetal position, whimpering, and that'll be it. And he'll probably make like $10,000 for it. And for a guy who made $11 million his last season in the NFL, I hope he takes that $10,000 and invests it in crypto.
In crypto.
Dogecoin. Yeah.
Like they're gonna make him fight like Joey Beltran or something. I can't.
Oh, please.
I love Joey Beltran, but like what he's done in BK has been phenomenal. His fight with Tony Lopez was one of the best fights you can ever watch in terms of violence. But anyway, it's
they probably had a trilogy. They fought like once in King of the Cage, once in Bare Knuckle, and they probably threw down at like somebody's quinceañera of like a some cousin that they both had in Southern California.
Man, I'm just looking forward to seeing him getting face planted again. That's really on. And then after that, we just take him out to pasture.
Worth mentioning that I was surprised a little bit when the UFC cut him when they did, because he'd lost 3 in a row, but they were the top 10 heavyweights. There's every reason the UFC could have just matched him up against, a Josh Parisian type, and just tried to keep the experiment going. But he lost 3 straight to good heavyweights, and they cut bait.
Too much money. Too much money in the contract.
Too much money. Yeah. I mean, he was making 80 and 80. How many dudes can we sign off the Contender Series for that? 8.
Yeah. Goodbye. Yeah. Then not a thing that required a lot of thought from the mathematicians over at the UFC to drop Greg Hardy. All right. Well, I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment comes courtesy of Cowboy Cerrone and Joe Lauzon and Dana White, because it was like the 3rd time they tried to book this fight and called off at the last second. I think last time it was Cowboy injury or illness,
Street tacos or something.
Yeah, Lauzon was now the party that had to pull out. Didn't show up to the ceremonial weigh-ins as a result of this illness. And Dana White afterward, after the event was over, said that he is or he said this right before, right after the fight, that he is not trying to rebook this one. And I am not surprised, because the last time they kept insisting on booking a fight was Khabib and Tony. And no matter what, they kept finding their way back to that booking. And no matter what, it kept unraveling. And the MMA gods kept saying, we don't want to see this. We don't want to see this. And just when we thought it was about to happen, the MMA gods thrust upon us a pestilence that has ensnared the world and quarantined everyone for the better part of 2 years. So I think Dana White tried to avoid global calamity yet again. Thank you, Dana, for preserving what little bit of normal life that we have left. So
Dana's our savior.
Dana's our savior for this one. All right, gentlemen. So it's time to have our 15-second spiel about PFL. This week is heavyweights and featherweights. Who moves on in these divisions? Should the conversation move on from these divisions?
All I'll say is I'm not making this up. This is not hyperbole. Every fighter in featherweight that won in the first go round of the regular season is fighting a fighter that lost. All of them. It's winners versus losers the entire way. It's 3 points to 0 for 5 different fights. And heavyweight is basically that as well, except for Renan Fajeda and Klidson Abreu, because they couldn't accidentally do something because they had to get that Elias guy another fight. We're talking matchmaking is just trying so hard here. And you know what's going to happen. They're going to desperately try and get Lance Palmer in there for some reason. Why? I don't know.
I don't either. Like, I think you would think they would be relieved that Lance Palmer's on a 3-fight losing streak and basically out of the picture. But they're matching him up against Shaman Moraes, who is on a 3-fight win streak, unbelievably. He's one of the last remaining World Series of Fighting OGs. I mean, this guy fought Marlon Moraes for the World Series of Fighting title like a million years ago. I understand what they're doing, and to an extent, it's commendable, because they are trying to push the math towards the extreme. So there are hopefully fewer like miserable surprises. But dude, speaking of miserable surprises, Lance Palmer fights are miserable to watch, and there are no surprises. Like, why are they like trying to get this man into the playoffs?
I've got a theory on that. I don't have a tinfoil hat sitting next to me, but isn't his manager one of the guys who plays a big part in how this organization operates?
For that, check out the 40-minute feature interview with Ali Abdelaziz on the Shirt Hog front page right now, courtesy of Marcelo Alonso. Ping.
So hey, I mean that whenever there's some sort of odd matchmaking, PFL, probably one of his clients.
Can confirm that Lance Palmer is a dominance MMA client.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think that answers a lot of questions.
That 10% manager check goes back around in the.
Yeah, you want your boy, if you've got a control of the organization to a certain extent as far as matchmaking is concerned, you sure would like to boost your client up and get him closer to that $1 million prize. So whatever it takes, just like the Avengers. I think that's what they said in Endgame, right? Yeah. All right. So, yeah, man, let's keep moving, because Bellator is also in action. It looks like they've dropped down to 1 card a month. Gegard Mousasi and Johnny Eblen are the main event this go around for the middleweight strap. Anything else jumping off the page at you? Any other matchups that you're looking forward to on this card, fellas?
I'm surprised that they're actually still pushing forward. Bellator is still pushing forward with Kat Zingano, Pam Sorensen. I figure they would pull Sorensen from the fight, throw Kat Zingano into a title fight with Cyborg, and get that fight, because Pam Sorensen is the kind of well-rounded enough fighter to spoil Kat Zingano and make them go, oh no, we just had Pam lose the other day. She just lost to Arlene Blenko, who has fought Cyborg like 7 times, or they're going to make her fight Cyborg 7 times before it's all said and done. So yeah, I'm more surprised at a few of these fights, like seeing Brent Primus against Alexander Shabliy. That's a crash them up. We're going to get rid of a contender kind of derby thing there. And my gosh, what they're doing. I get why Johnny Eblen gets the title shot because there's no one else there. But this is such a gnarly step up in competition from John Salter to Gegard Mousasi. Holy smokes. And it's not that I'm trashing on Travis Davis or Colin Huckbody or Damage Rid or Taylor Tombstone Johnson. Those guys are, they're fine. They're fine. And he beat all of those guys. Eblen did. But this is like going from easy mode in the arcade to fighting Shang Tsung on hard. Just no. This is such a gap in the thing. You like skip the mirror match altogether because screw that. And you're going right to the worst fight. You're like, oh my gosh, he's spamming all these things and he can take me down. I'm so done. What am I going to do? So yeah, this is Merkzilla here.
This is the problem you run into when your divisions don't have depth. Because in a perfect world, Eblen would get 3 or 4 more fights before he had to fight one of the best fighters in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Big issue. Big issue there.
And I like Eblen. Like he's got talent. Like he's an ATT guy they've been building him up right. But the problem is they ran out. It was like in Price is Right, the yodeling climber. And then you hit that top part. No, I have to fight Gegard Mousasi.
Yeah, this is when you let Gegard Mousasi do something outside the organization, or you let him fight at 205. Like this is what that's for. Yeah, Gegard, go on loan for a Glory Kickboxing match or something, or take a one off at 205. But yeah, let contenders build up, especially when you got someone with some promise that they've actually put a little effort behind. So yeah, it seems like they're gonna waste it away. I mean, 2 names that stand out to me. One name that stands out to me just because he's been on the Contender Series, and I interviewed him one time. Pretty nice guy, Aaron Jeffrey. So he's on the prelim, but I see his name as the opener. Maybe this is something that is not going to ring true when the actual fight takes place and Tapology's got stuff out of order. I don't know what the Fight Finder has, what order they have, but Mando Nalo in the opener for the whole show, and Mando Nalo is just so much fun to watch. And something crazy always happens. No matter how irrelevant he may be to the rankings or to the title picture, I don't care. Put this guy higher up on the card because it's always going to be entertaining. This dude is so much fun to watch. He should not open the entire card.
Didn't he nuke a guy with a Superman punch not long ago?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that like something we haven't seen since like Travis Brown, Stefan Struve. Like it's been a long time since we've seen a one-hitter quitter Superman punch.
Isn't it funny, like how all of a sudden TriStar is the breeding ground for these wild dudes? Like what must sparring be like with Mandel Nalo and Charles Jourdain? Like
well, for us, Javi just threw his papers in the air when GSP left.
Yeah. For us, it's like all I know is I don't like gay people. You guys,
for us, is caught up. He's caught up in his QAnon message boards now. He's just like, screw it. He doesn't have time to coach now, so now they're just to the wolves with the training. Yeah. So these guys are going nuts over at TriStar, man. I love to see Mandel Nalo do it. All right, well, the UFC is back at the Apex Center after a little bit of time on the road, and their main event this week is Arman
Tsarukyan.
Yes, and
Mateusz Gamrot.
Thank you. Is this another time where the UFC might have been better just taking a week off?
I just finished posting the Sherdog preview for this card, and my theme in the intro was like, it's okay to fill up on bread. Because we know that next weekend is UFC 276. We got 2 monster title fights on top of it, and there's great stuff all the way down. And this is kind of, when you go to the restaurant with your parents and like they put the bowl of chips or the bread out, it's like, don't fill up on bread, It's okay to fill up on bread. There's some good stuff on this card. We got a couple of prospects trying to come back to, make themselves not busted prospects. Like, jury's still out a little bit on Carlos Olberg. He looks like a villain from a 90s kickboxing movie. Stardom is there for him if he can just keep winning fights. I mean, he looks like a model. He's like ripped. He's a kickboxer. He's got that arrogance. He's an Adesanya like homie. Like it's all there. He just needs to get past, to Tafon and Chukwi. JP Bays is trying to salvage something from the worst year that anybody has ever had in the history of the planet. Like lots of good little storylines going on down there. And then at the top of this card, just for the second week in a row, we have a lightweight matchup that is low on name value, but big on implications for the title picture over the next couple of years. These guys are incredible.
It's like this fight is like a higher level in terms of relevance and rankings and what have you. Ismagulov Kutataladze in terms. I mean, there are multiple parallels, not just regionally, or the fact that Gamrot, he won that fight against Garam, but that's not the point. That it feels like a 2 years from now, like this is an investment card. Like that's what this feels like to me. This feels like they're putting the money in the bank. They're putting that in the go. And then they're putting Josh Parisian and Alan Baudot in the third fight. What are we doing here? I like Josh Parisian more than most people. I've been writing about this dude and lamenting how he got absolutely screwed by the UFC to hit a spinning back fist on Ribs Rebello in Contender Series. He was not signed. He was thrown on to Tough and then had to fight Michel Batista, who just picked him up and went, we're going this way. And he's like, okay. It was just what they did to Parisian and then make him win 5 fights on the regional circuit after Tough and then have another try in Contender Series. Like, this was the UFC putting all the roadblocks up for Josh Parisian, a guy who is a very entertaining guy, by the way. And if they put him on the microphone, he would say some funny words and I'd be okay with it.
I've quoted some things he has said on this show before.
Yes. And it's really a shame. But that said, it's a Josh Parisian fight against Alan Baudot. I can't like this fight card. And here's why. I have 276 there. It's
Jay's
like
not going to fill up on bread.
It's like I'm listening to a I don't know. I can't think of a good version of it. I'm listening to AC/DC on the way to an AC/DC concert. It's just like it's so insignificant because what's about to happen is going to be so awesome that 276 is a fight card that we could take a whole show to talk about that, how awesome 276 is on paper.
No, it's more like you're on the way to the AC/DC concert and you're listening to like Jet or Buck Cherry or something.
Sure,
just like a bad knockoff.
Yeah, okay, I'm okay with that. That's a good way to say it. But yeah, it's just this was that take a breath because something crazy is about to happen. Because the UFC always, I'm slamming my desk on purpose, always takes July 4th off or that week off for the past several years to let it breathe. International Fight Week, the whole thing, to let that culminate together, to let the stink, let the stink stay in and marinate a little bit. This isn't really that. This isn't an appetizer into International Fight Week, I don't feel. Even though it's at the Apex, it's the Apex. It's not T-Mobile to let people come and spend the whole week here. It's the Apex. So this should have been a week off, I think.
Yeah, I think this card solely exists to air commercials. Like that's really the whole purpose of this, in my opinion, because there are a couple of good names on this, like names as far as diehard fans.
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. Chris Curtis is fighting.
Yeah. Like they're names on here. We got Neil Magny, we got Thiago Moises, we got people that we care about in like on this card, but it's just not a lot of significance to it. But it's going to be on ESPN, ESPN Plus. This isn't main.
This is a big ESPN card.
Yeah. Oh, it's big.
Isn't that crazy?
This is all about commercials. This is all about
there's broadcast obligations to deal with here.
Yeah, this is all about getting the pay-per-view commercial on as many eyeballs as possible, as close to the fight as possible. That's what this is about. That confirms me more. I just assumed it was ESPN Plus when I looked at the names. Normally when we're prepping for the show, I look at where it's supposed to be broadcast, but looking at the names on the main event, like, oh, this is not a big ESPN card. But this confirms this is exactly what they want to do. You have a place to air commercials and to have your little puff pieces and interviews. Like how many images of Adesanya are we going to see, like doing mitt work? We're gonna have like Jarrett Cannonier talking about crystals or something. Like this is going to be all over this broadcast, and that's the only reason why this fight card is taking place.
Buy or sell. This card is headlined by Arman Sarukian and Mateusz Gamrot. Whose name is said more on the broadcast by the people at the desk? Israel Adesanya?
Yes.
Or Arman Sarukian?
Yes.
Israel, easily. Yes. Israel Adesanya's name is said more than a lot of main events. so yeah. This is all about. This is going to be Adesanya commercial.
The only guy with him is Olberg, right? Yeah. There's no. He was only city kickboxing guy on the card, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody else.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Oh yeah, that doesn't matter at all. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to Issy. When they should be shouting Shavkat Rakhmonov from the Shemaev rooftops here, and we're not. Like I don't understand. This guy is a stud. How many guys show up to the UFC, choke out Cowboy Oliveira in the first round, handle short 5'2", 190-pound Michel Prajedas, who is called Tractor for that reason, and spinning hook kick Carlson Harris, and people go,
No.
Oh, I thought that was a drop or something.
Yeah, that was my phone. I got a notification and it lit up something on my phone. It's like,
this is UFC on ESPN 38 missed opportunities. I think that could be his name.
Yeah, this is UFC Fight Night commercial right here. Yeah. So hashtag pre-UFC 276.
It's a commercial with fights on it, not a fight card with commercials on it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, gentlemen. So I think that's going to do it for this edition of Living Death. I was about to say one of the names of our old shows, but
welcome to Off the Chain.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. I was like, because like on my Facebook memories of the other day, it was I guess 3 or 4 years ago, whatever, we did the first one, and that popped up in my Facebook memories, and I was really about to go off the rails and say the wrong thing there. But anyway, Living Death, that's the name of the show now. You can find Ben and Jay on SureDog.com. They're going to have plenty of fight night coverage. There's many fights going on this week, and Jay, I'm sure, will be doing play-by-play for the majority of it. Ben doing pre and post fight work as well. So you guys go ahead and check them out. All right. So like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive. Happy belated Father's Day. Happy belated Juneteenth. Peace.